Hello, peoples. Let's see. You can hear me over there? Yeah. As folks come in, just feel free to start by answering some of these questions to get it going. I see a handful of folks already in here. Just let's see. Got Arif and Carl, Joseph, Kyle, Laura, Lexa, Michael, Patricio. I know some of these names. Trevor, Sky. I think Sky maybe was on a past webinar. It's a good thing I prepared new material. Jeez. Yeah, let's see. Check if people can comment. I see some. Oh, hi, Michael. How you doing? East Village, NYC. That's right over the river from where I am. That's the East River for those curious. Let's see. Michael wants to know if there'll be a way to get a recording of this. Uh, we're going to make a recording available, right? Cool. And email fatigue. What is that? Is there a service called email fatigue, or is that just how you feel? Which I totally understand. Give you any information afterwards you'd like. We are recording this, right? Right, Og, it's being recorded. Yeah, I think so. Cool. Seeing a bunch more people come in. I also made an extra special post on LinkedIn right before this. So we should expect everyone to want to join after seeing my post. Even all those people in Europe that were just about to log off for the night and slip into Netflix, they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll do some email deliverability learning. But I will start going through the material in about 3 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, 2, 3 minutes. So if there's any colleagues that you want to join or ask to join, feel free to. And I'm going to speak probably around this pace. And if we do distribute the playback, probably will sound pretty good at 1.5x. Sometimes I get a little excited and I speak faster, but that's how it goes. Michael, yeah, don't use AI. That makes sense. We're not going to talk that much about what you think we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about AI and other layers of the whole piece of the email puzzle. Yeah, nice to see you, Patricio. Cool. Oh yeah. Okay. So the video will be. I said email. You could say that's almost a Freudian slip. You can tell where my mind is most of the time. The video will be available on YouTube. I assume on the sender's YouTube channel, which has got to be one of the hottest email deliverability themed channels on the internet. Cool. And Carl, yeah, email fatigue, people having too many emails to read. Cool. How do you gain value while balancing promotion? That's a good question. We can talk about that a little bit in the Q&A. All right, just 60 more seconds. I see a lot more folks here than are making any posts in our chat. So I'm eager to hear where you all are from, what kind of email you're doing, what kind of email services you use. And obviously Q&A we'll have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. And that means that if you have questions as we go, just drop them in there. And I've got a few team members from my team that are going to be tracking the questions to make sure that they don't get missed by me. So for those of you who have been on these webinars before, I usually start with this slide. Hi, Chris and FiDi. So the question is, how deep down the email deliverability rabbit hole have you gone? So I usually use this time to talk a little bit about senders, who we are, what we do. I think that credibility in this space is really, really important because there are a lot of new entrants to the space. There's a lot of people that I see on LinkedIn that are claiming to be email deliverability experts. And while there is a world where you could study and become an expert on something in a relatively short amount of time. The main problem with email deliverability experts who are new is that a lot of email deliverability comes from time engaged in email deliverability. And it really gets counted in the millions of email sends, not the thousands or tens of thousands. And Senders, our company, has been doing email deliverability stuff for going on 10 years. I think it's 8 years since we founded Senders, 2016. And on an annual basis, we're sending tens of millions of emails. We consider ourselves a full puzzle email deliverability company. We look at and we work on and we care about all sorts of email, cold email, corporate email, marketing email, transaction email. We really know in our souls that cold email is the hardest. And we really built our brand on cold email. And we send a lot of cold email on behalf of many, many clients. So we're seeped in this, and all of our expertise and all the things that we talk about and the things that we advise our clients on are not really based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clients, or like some dude's post on LinkedIn that we think, oh, that sounds clever, let's do that. It's really based on the actual living experiment that is Senders, all the emails that are being sent. I'm the CEO and founder. We have a team of technicians. Some of those folks are here on the call that can help answer questions, and maybe this can be the day that some of the rabbit hole digging ends. Today, we're going to focus on some overall basic aspects of email deliverability as we do, but we're also going to talk a little bit more with an emphasis on AI. So how does AI, machine learning and AI, artificial intelligence, play into email deliverability? Before we jump into all the AI stuff, let's talk very briefly about the elements of email. We can talk specifically about the elements of cold email. And some of this has to do with what differentiates Senders, but not in a way that is unique. What I mean is there's sort of a best practices at play, and Senders works extremely hard to be the place where best practices can really come to the fore and be implemented for all of our clients. And the only elements that we really have under our control or your control if you're doing cold email are these ones. You have domains, IPs, the actual IP addresses of the email sends. You have DNS records, which is the code that sits in the back of everything and acts as authentication for your email deliveries, and your email usage. So what is the content of the email? What is the pattern that you're sending? All that stuff. What differentiates us from other folks is when it comes to domains, we only use or allow to be used aged domains. It's becoming more and more popular for folks to spin up domains, dozens and dozens and dozens, and send a little bit from each. That's something that we've been baffled by because it's well known that newer domains have a shorter shelf life because they have less reputation and they can't sustain enough volume. You can't send a lot of emails from new domains without them becoming damaged. It's a very brittle thing. They're not really warmed and engaged. And email recipient servers, the spam filtration systems, tend to penalize new domains because new domains is what spammers do. And old school spammers and scammers. You spin up a bunch of stuff and send. IP addresses, we only use very, very, very well-warmed and very tightly managed IP pools for our clients. That means tens of millions of emails have gone through the IP addresses that we're implementing for our clients. And in a lowercase, it would be millions of emails. If someone's issuing you a new IP address and saying it's new, it's brand new, it's great, that is basically a way of saying it's on you. No one's warmed this. We don't know if the internet is going to reject this IP or like this IP. There's no sort of preparation that happened. And we find that those IP addresses tend to severely underperform. So we only use very, very well-warmed IP addresses, and that's one of the strengths of us. We don't allow sending to Gmail accounts or other public email addresses from the IP addresses that we manage because those are known to damage IP addresses, and email service providers treat those more harshly. And we work with all of our clients to have them all rise to really good email hygiene practices. Some of those we'll touch on in this presentation, but a sort of slightly heavier handed control is one of the reasons why our clients tend to perform very well with their email deliverability over long periods of time. We have clients that send millions of emails a year and have been doing it for years and years and years, while seemingly the rest of the email deliverability landscape has crumbled all around us. We're doing the same things that we've been doing for a long while. So our goal is to make a very stable sending environment, and all the advice that we give is in service of a very stable sending environment. And our clients come to us and stick with us in the long haul because we're here to make a very stable sending environment. And that in many ways means that they have very few domains or one domain, and they're sending 80,000 plus emails per month with no issue. So transitioning into the AI topic, I've sort of broken this up into three pieces. We have the AI for pre-sending, you have the AI for email content optimization, then you have the AI for spam filtration. So I'm going to start with pre-sending. One of the ways that AI is already being used and is going to be used more and more is in your pre-sending research. Typically, what you do is you think about your targets based on technographic profiles, job titles, so demographics and technographics. Demographics meaning where are they, what's their role inside a company, how big is the company, and then what's their are they in my ICP in sort of an abstract sense. Technographics refers to what technical products you know that they use. So, they use Salesforce, they use Shopify, they use those things. And you sort of merge those two and you go after folks based on these sort of general things. What you're seeing more and more of is using AI tools, large language model tools, to read all the information on their website, go much deeper, and actually try to make some sort of connection between the product or service you offer and the likelihood of this person having an actual potential to use it. In other words, you're reducing the number of clear negatives. So an example of that might be, there might be a CEO for a finance company, and you'd say, oh yeah, we serve finance companies and we like to go after CEOs, and they might have 10 employees. But you might be doing a marketing product, but that company might be entirely B2B or entirely back-end, and might not have any evidence of marketing. So by using AI, for example, large language models, you can identify the fact that, well, they don't have a Twitter, they don't have a LinkedIn page, they don't have any of these things. It looks to be like maybe it's a technical hedge fund, and that hedge fund has three, LPs or three investors, and that's it. And it's really just a team of 9 quant traders and a CEO. Well, that basically means that company is a very, very not a good fit for you. But from the technographic or demographic side, it looks like it is. So one of the ways that we're seeing more and more AI being used is really in this pre-sending research. And I think that is a really good way to not email the people that are obviously wrong, if that makes sense. So I think that in that way, AI for pre-sending research can be really good. A good use of AI that doesn't impose on any of the other issues that can come later with using AI. So optimizing targeting. Eventually, you might see more AI tools being employed in the sending platforms themselves. Apollo is hinting at this a bit, where they're basically using the behavior of that person that you're trying to send an email to, the behavior that the way they've acted when other people have cold emailed them, to give you an indication if they're likely to engage or not. Apollo has a feature for this. I'm not sure how much AI is playing into that algorithm, or if it's very just mechanical, like, yes, this person has engaged or hasn't. That could be a useful way in the pre-sending research area. The next phase of this is AI for email content optimization. This area has been so far the most exploited by marketers. I've seen almost every example of this to be very, very poorly done. To the point where I get emails all the time that are clearly enhanced by ChatGPT, where the only enhancements tend to be to tell me more about me as a recipient, which doesn't make very much sense at all. An example of that would be like, hi, Benny, I see that you're in Brooklyn. Lots of nice restaurants and stuff there. And it's like, yes, it is Brooklyn. And yes, there are lots of restaurants here. Okay, like, what does this relate to? The software you're selling has no relation to it at all. And then the most extreme examples are relying really heavily on AI, and they just sort of get it all wrong. And I think the reason why they get it all wrong is they're sort of extrapolating based on very little information. So technically, Senders is in sales, marketing, but also IT. So they'll make some sort of reference to IT services companies, which we sort of vaguely consider ourselves a single service IT company, et cetera, et cetera. So that's sort of on the negative side. On the positive side, for email content optimization, it's not actually using AI to tell the person that you're emailing about them based on information you scrape from the internet. It's telling the recipient about your company as it relates to the position that you think they're in, if that makes sense. Maybe it seems like a small distinction, but it's actually real. In other words, if someone is trying to build a case for why I should take a demo call with them, even if I'm not that interested in what they're doing, if they're describing their product and service in a way that seems to reflect my current situation, that actually can be pretty helpful and useful. So AI can be useful in helping the company that is doing the sending craft their email message based on actually who they're sending to. And that factors directly into pre-sending research as well. So maybe there's a bar you pass. If the pre-sending research actually indicates that this would be a good person to email, that pre-sending research can also become the way that the email is crafted in order to make it resonate better with your target audience. Now, one of the problems with cold email, it doesn't have very large populations. In the case, like if you compare it to Google AdWords or Facebook AdWords, you say, well, there's 1 million people that are tagged as between these ages and this general position in society. And so I'm going to send ads to them and I'm going to get really good statistical data. You really have this sort of one-of-one problem where there's only one CEO of a company called Senders who's based in Brooklyn, who has X number of employees, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't actually really know the counterfactual. You don't know what you said that interested them or what you said that didn't interest them or what's going on in their life in order to whatever. So it really needs, AI in this case really needs to be used for the purpose of refining the message that you want to send, regardless of if it works or not. In other words, if you veer too far from your sort of core purpose in emailing them and what you're trying to convey to them, you'll end up missing the mark pretty badly. In other words, if you sort of make stuff up because it sounds really cool and resonates, when someone like me who's being sold to gets on the phone, I'm going to be really, really confused. I'm going to be like, it's so weird. In your email, you mentioned, team performance optimization, but now you're talking about something else. Like, oh, so that was just like an AI gimmick because you sensed that would resonate with me. So you have to be a little bit careful with that. Now, this third point, I'm going to go into a lot more detail. So I hope you're interested. I say more AI spam filtration analysis by ESPs. ESPs meaning email service providers. In this case, I'm talking about people who are receiving the emails. So you might use Gmail to send emails, but Gmail is also receiving the emails. And obviously the spam filtration happens on the receiving end. It's getting filtered into your inbox or into spam or into your primary inbox or whatever. So more AI spam filtration. Artificial intelligence, machine learning systems have already been employed by Google and Microsoft and all these systems probably for more than a decade already. And it wasn't necessarily large language model stuff. It was all sorts of other stuff. So they're using AI in order to guess which emails should be delivered or not delivered using machine learning. They're also using non-machine learning or non-artificial intelligence style tactics. The change, of course, is more and more large language model stuff is coming into the picture. And more text analysis and sort of deeper text analysis is coming into the picture. So AI tools are being employed more and more. And the rest of this presentation, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on what these specific points are, or at least like what the parts of spam filtration mechanisms are. I think the most important thing to take away from this is all of this stuff is internal to the way email service providers are functioning. These are not very easily gameable systems. And the best way you can avoid getting caught up in a spam filter is just by being a legitimate sender and not doing anything that's obviously scammy or spammy or downright ridiculous. So the more likelihood that you're playing some sort of trick or think you're doing something really clever, the more you look like a spammer or a scammer, and the more likely that these very sophisticated and getting more and more sophisticated spam filtration systems are going to figure out you're doing something a little bit off, a little bit weird is going on, and that's going to make them think more likely to flag you. An example of that, a very simple example of that might be if you're sending emails to someone in the same company, but every time you email them, it's from a different domain. Well, that's a really strange thing to do. It's just odd. It's just weird. So that might be something that the spam filtration systems weren't sophisticated enough or absorbing enough data to fully appreciate then, or maybe it was rare and now it's becoming more and more common. So it's more and more likely that those things are going to be marked as spam. Okay, cool. So I'm going to pause for a brief second because I've been speaking nonstop, literally just for like 1 minute. And then we're going to jump into some of the details of the spam filtration systems themselves. So David asked, I'll do some questions in the meantime. What the heck is going? I said, you said hell, but I said heck. I don't know, somehow. David says, what the hell is going on with Outlook lately? This is going to sound a little bit funny, David, but from our data and the way that we send emails, there's no change for Outlook. So the real question is, why does the wider email deliverability world think that Outlook is having some sort of major problem? Well, Outlook, just like Google, just like all the other systems that receive emails, are making changes. They're always making changes. They make changes every day. They make changes on an individual basis for individual company or individual users' spam preferences, sort of automatically changed. So the question is, why are companies like Google and Microsoft now signaling more and more and louder to the market, hey, changes are here, changes are here, changes are here? Likely, there's two reasons. One is that there's an uptick in spam-y, I'm not even necessarily it's spam, but spam-y activity, and they need to tell the admins of the world that, hey, they're on top of the changes in user behavior and they're trying to rise to the occasion to make adjustments. The second one is they need to communicate to the admins that the admins now have to be more diligent because they're going to be seeing more emails go to spam that are potentially not spam. It largely doesn't have that much to do with the way a legitimate email sender, and of course, cold email is legitimate. I know it sounds funny to say that, but it's enshrined in the Spam Act in the notes that the FTC has published. So they've said that cold email is basically allowed if you follow some of the rules. So if you're not doing anything deliberately shady, or if you're not doing anything shady, whether deliberately or inadvertently, you likely won't have any problem with Microsoft or anyone else. And it very well may be that the key problem is the domain age. That oftentimes happens where the older things, the more stable things perform better. Older domains perform better. They just do. Why? If domains are new, they can't really be trusted. Almost no legitimate companies start to blast out high volumes of email or even low volumes of email from a brand new company, brand new domain, brand new everything. So new is being punished. And that also goes for IP addresses in the case that someone's spinning up a dedicated IP address for email sending. If you have a new domain and a new IP address, well, it's totally likely that Outlook is tweaking their algorithm slightly to just penalize that and say, yeah, we used to be a little bit permissive, but now we're not going to be permissive anymore because it's not worth it. Hey, admins, make sure you check your spam filtration systems, because if you are the rare kind of company that actually does need to receive emails from new companies, new domains, new email addresses, you might want to tweak your settings to allow those to come through. So I think that's what's going on with Outlook. And just David, you can see Dame from our team has asked you a question here in the chat. What kind of issues have you experienced? You're saying lots of warm replies on G Suite, other issues on Outlook. Okay. Then I got on LinkedIn and see outbound people are complaining, almost zero replies from Outlook as well. We're happy to take a look at your individual system, David. Just feel free to set up a chat with Dame directly, or listen on. We can dig into it more. All right. So to plow ahead here, I'm going to go through the different kinds of machine learning algorithms, different kinds of filtration that's happening on the spam filtration side. And we're going to try to get a little bit of clarity into what all these different systems are doing. These systems have been around quite a while, and you can Google the history of these things. Bayesian filtering is a statistical technique. It's based on probabilities, and it's trying to use word frequencies to calculate the likelihood that an email is spam. So AI enhances this because the data sets can get larger and larger and larger and more unique, and they can more quickly adapt to the spam tactics involved. So word patterns and word choices and avoiding patterns and choices that are associated with spam. It's a little bit different from just keywords, because the Bayesian filtering is, and especially with other AI techniques that are on top of it, are looking at things that are a little bit deeper. So an example of that might be euphemisms might become more likely to go to spam, even though you think you're being clever by not saying a euphemism. Euphemisms themselves might end up be triggering more, because the probability that a euphemistic phrase that sort of meant something else but doesn't might end up becoming the thing that Bayesian filtering goes, aha, this is detecting a little bit more spam. So Bayesian filtering is one of these techniques that spam filters are using. Keyword analysis is another. This one is just specific words and phrases. AI comes into play because now you can have more context. You could ask a large language model, hey, what are other ways that this phrase might be interpreted that we should be aware of? And large language models are very, very good at that kind of interpretation. Large language models are also very good at multilingual stuff and all sorts of other things that maybe would have been a little bit tricky to have. For example, if an email was half in English, half in French, like it was being a spam thing that was sent from an African country to a European country or vice versa, in the past, a filtering system might say, well, first I choose which language I'm analyzing, then I choose how to analyze it. Now with machine learning and AI, they could have an actual translation layer where it says, if something is not in one language, change it to the other language, and then run the analysis. Keyword analysis can also be really interesting because with large language models, they can analyze more keywords over time. So they can ingest all the past data they have on things that went to spam or things that were marked as spam, and try to build a better understanding of ways that the language is shifting. And that shift of language might be indicative of where spam is moving to or from. An example of that might be maybe the word free, F-R-E-E, was used so much in spam that it became fully out of favor and spammers know never to use it, or some sort of word or some sort of emoji that was like indicative of spam. And spammers have completely moved away from using it, but maybe those same keywords have come into common parlance in other ways. So free trial might not be a spam keyword anymore, while the word free might be a spam keyword on its own, for example. So keyword analysis and the AI and Bayesian filtering and all these things layer on to figure out whether these things are actually indicative of spam or not. Blacklists and whitelists are some of the oldest forms of filtering. Whitelists are very simple. If you were doing a large enterprise deal with a company, their IT team might just put you on the whitelist, meaning any emails that come from this IP address or this domain, put it in the inbox. It's legitimate. It's okay, even if it triggers a bunch of spam keywords. Some law firms, for example, might have extensive whitelists because they have very intense filtering. So when they need something to get through, they just whitelist the whole domain, or they whitelist the whole category of IP addresses, a whole array of IP addresses or whatever. Blacklists are the opposite. People who send from this domain send to the blacklist, never deliver it under any circumstances. I'm not sure how AI would play into this. I mean, you can imagine more advanced systems that are sharing blacklists across, or having more blacklists that are more dynamic, but I'm sure those systems are already in play. And that's why you might see, if you email one company or one person, they might reject it, but that same company might accept the same email 2 months later. And that's because things are cycling on and off of blacklists. If that makes sense. Heuristic analysis is another technique. This is a rule-based approach. So something like excessive use of punctuation or capital letters or that kind of thing could be used in heuristic analysis. So it's basically saying, well, if there's more than 5 exclamation points in any email, maybe it's likely to be spam. It's not the exclamation point that is necessarily triggering the spam. There's something about a rule that was set in the system of saying, there's something weird about this. Or something like, if someone uses the word contact me on WhatsApp, here's the number, and the number starts with a plus and has more than 9 digits, and it's being emailed to a country that that number of digits doesn't correspond to, it's potential that heuristic analysis would pick up on that and say, yeah, if something has a WhatsApp number in it, and. Another idea this could be if, and we see this with certain kinds of phishing attacks, where they email employees of a company and they pretend to be the CEO of the company. There's a clever name for this kind of hack. I think it's called the president's scam, where the president of the company contacts someone lower down and perpetuates a scam, typically because the person lower down doesn't have a lot of contact with the high person in the company. So they sort of feel a little bit frazzled that they got an email from someone high up in the company. So they want to help them. And even if it comes from a Gmail, oftentimes they say something like, hi, Tom, I'm Benny Rubin, CEO of our company here at Senders, and I've been locked out of my Gmail account or and I'm stepping into a board meeting. Could you help me for a minute? And then they start a scam that way. So in this case, a heuristic analysis might involve actually looking for emails that use the CEO's name in the first person without the person being the one actually doing the emailing or a known email address doing the emailing. So it's a rule that says we know who the people in the company are, and if someone outside the company is pretending to be in the company, don't deliver it, mark it as spam. Of course, that doesn't make sense across an entire population because, well, every company is made up of different individuals, and the CEO and the president is a name, has a different name for every company. So you couldn't really have some sort of large model that just always marks things of people who claim to be Benny Rubin who aren't, go to spam. You have to have it very individualized. So heuristic analysis might be doing that kind of thing. And machine learning models in general, these are models that can be further and further unique to the individual recipient, and they're always evolving. And machine learning this is why Google is heavily asking you to mark things as spam if you think it's spam, rather than archiving it or deleting it. This is the reason why you're seeing Google more and more put like, is this spam? Let us know, front and center. And that's because they're feeding their machine learning models, whether on an individual basis, you consider the spam, therefore wanted to go to spam, or on a generalized population of, hey, a certain percentage of these people mark this email as spam, and our machine learning algorithm is now getting smarter because of this. So this is the mechanism that's causing a few spam reports to turn into serious domain damage or serious IP address damage over time. It's because the machine learning model is now identifying you as spam. This also works in reverse. If you think about the way that Senders operates with IP addresses that have sent millions and millions of emails, the machine learning models to say, well, millions of emails have been delivered with very, very few issues. Therefore, we can safely assume that even if 1 or 2 emails are marked as spam from these IP addresses, by and large, these IP addresses are not a source of spam. So it can work in the positive as well. The machine learning, you've reinforced the machine learning, telling them that these domains or these IPs are in pretty good standing and not likelihood to be the root of a spam problem. And that comes to engagement-based filtering, which is this sort of positive reinforcement loop that can happen. If people are consistently replying to emails or interacting with emails in other ways, or fishing them out of their spam folder if that's where it went to, then all that can reinforce your email quality and make it more likely that your emails will not only be delivered, but continue to be delivered. So improving engagement rates increases inbox placement and lowers spam flags. And the number of things that are being sent from that similar IP address or those domains that are reinforcing that means that you're less likely to be filtered out. And the last one is a sort of catch-all for everything else, which is sender reputation. This is what we were talking about directly, indirectly, the IP address quality, how many other emails have been sent without issue from these domains or these IP addresses. Overall, does your company seem reputable across the internet? And this could go all the way down with more and more data being brought in. This could be all the way down to is there a Google location for your business? Does your Google location have positive reviews, or is it 1-star negative that say this is a scam, don't reply? Those things might become more and more meaningful in the way that things come into play. Also, interaction could become more and more meaningful in sender reputation, meaning if someone replies to you, do you reply back in a normal way? Meaning if the conversation seems very, very short, that might damage your sender reputation, even if people are replying. And that's pure conjecture, but we're talking about AI and machine learning algorithms gobbling up more and more and more and filtering that into sender reputation in a way that goes above and beyond what we've been seeing to date. Cool. That's my little stuff about all the different systems. Well, there's actually probably more layers to this, and these systems all interact with each other, probably a lot more than we can imagine. That's my little overview into the way that AI is factoring into all the ways that email service providers are filtering. And this is just a little list for everyone that's been involved in email for a while. Some of the dates and touch points that have come into play here, which is the CAN-SPAM Act, which was pretty monumental. SPF was only introduced in 2004. So that's about 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Sorry, it's not very good at math today. 20 years ago is where SPF came into play, which is a DNS record you put in the back of your website to indicate to the recipient that the sender is legitimate. This is to prevent spoofing, where someone pretends to be you. So it's giving an indication of where the email that comes from you should be coming from to actually be from you. DKIM is it's called domain keys identified mail. This is a little string of code that you send along with an email that matches up with something in your DNS records to authenticate that the place it was sent from is the place that the email should be sent from, basically. DMARC is another DNS record. DMARC is a way to make sure that the way that you want your email to be treated is aligned in your DNS record. I'm not going to go too much into detail on DMARC, but it's a sort of authentication system that sits across SPF and DMARC, SPF and DKIM, to make sure that there's further authentication. These things are very important, and they become more and more important in Google. As mentioned down below, Google and Microsoft are now even more emphasizing the need for these things in order to have email safely delivered. The CAN-SPAM Act was updated in 2008 with further regulations. GDPR came out, so that's European clamping down more. And we had the California Consumer Privacy Act, which is a sort of California version of GDPR, which is also pretty significant. And all this is on top of Google and Microsoft's internal updates, which are happening all the time, every day. Some of those are to improve user experience, spam filtering for admins or for all the users of their systems. And some are actually just to limit cold email sending. They're not too keen on having all these cold emails sent. So that is all the stuff I had prepared for us today. And I'm seeing some questions come in, but I'd like a lot more questions. Do you guys have a lot more questions? I talked a lot really fast, but we're totally open to any questions about spam filtering, IP addresses, all the stuff I talked about on the top, about the way Senders works versus other companies. I'm happy to define it. So David asked, how would you define new in terms of domains? Less than 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. So as Dame mentioned in the chat, at least 3 months, but older is much better. On a very basic level, the general feeling with email admins, people who receive emails and try to manage them, almost nothing good comes from a domain that is less than 3 months old. And because almost nothing good comes from a domain that's less than 3 months old, they can pretty safely just filter out any emails that come from a domain that's less than 3 months old. Do they do that always? No. They could allow it to be delivered, but do they look at it a little bit unsure? Yes. Some companies might say we don't want domains that are less than 4 months old or 5 months old or 1 month old or something else, but 3 months tends to be an amount that they can pretty safely filter out. And it also is long enough. I guess it's short enough that if there is a legitimate use, it could be okay to deliver it at 3 months and 1 day, for example. So let's see. Sky says, what is suggested infrastructure to set up and scale volume if buying lots of domains is sketchy, frowned upon? Sky, there isn't a suggested infrastructure in a very broad sense. The way we found to scale infrastructure is IP addresses, multiples of IP addresses with millions of emails having sent through them, age domains, diversified with using subdomains, a very healthy warming to legitimate email sending ratio, IP addresses managed very, very closely, rotated out when they become damaged in any way or showing any weaknesses, and constant and very vigilant monitoring. Then emails that have no redirected links in them, that are free of spam keywords, etc. That's how we do it. And that's, you can tell that that's not turnkey. That's not easy. That's not like a $50 a month kind of like, oh, this is easy peasy, bumble easy. It's just not. And that's the reason why our pricing starts at where it does. And we have lots of clients that send high volumes of email, but also some that have lots of senders at lower volumes. It's because there isn't just like, oh yeah, this is the place. And it's because it's quite complicated. So Arif asked, let's see, I'll enter a purpose first. From your experience, where do you think email deliverability is headed in 6 months, 12 months, a few years out? I actually don't think that email deliverability is going to change very much at all. It wouldn't shock me even a little bit if it's almost identical from it is 10 years from now. The reason why I say that is if you think about the vast majority of emails that are being sent, they're marketing emails and transactional emails. And marketing emails and transactional emails, marketing emails meaning what you imagine is you go to Saks Fifth Avenue, you buy something, you sign up for their email list, they send you emails. Great. Transactional emails are, oh, I need to change my password. So I go to Facebook's password reset and it sends me a note saying password reset, or your bank sends you a notice saying, hey, there's a new notice in your notification center or something. These aren't marketing, they're transactional. There's something happening and they want to let you know about it. Those have been incredibly stable for the last 10 or 20 years and will probably be very stable for the next 10 or 20 years. It's possible that email itself will fall out of favor or something will happen, but likely not. And the reason why likely, well, it's possible to fall out of favor and I can't predict the future, like how it will fall out of favor. But the reason why I don't think that email is going to change and email deliverability is going to change that much in the next 6 months, 12 months, a few years out, is that email itself is baked into the fabric of the internet. And there are updates to the internet, but there aren't massive changes to the fundamentals of a web browser sends the code, you open it, it loads the code, and you look at what came through. Email basically is the same kind of structure and function. So it's possible that email will change and fall out of favor, or there'll be advancements that will make it either more interactive, less interactive, more rich, less rich, more interesting, less interesting, whatever. But I don't think email is going to change very much. And I think it'll very much look very similar to how it is definitely 6 months, definitely 12 months, and maybe even 5 or 10 years into the future. I think that with sensitivity of email spam filtering, that might go up, but that largely means that email will become less attractive for spammers and scammers and likely remain a pretty attractive place for legitimate marketers to send messages to people. Now, there's also potential for the regulatory environment to change. You can say what you want about the state of email, but the CAN-SPAM Act was a very large law, and the update in 2008 was a very large update. GDPR is a very large law, and the California Consumer Privacy Act is a big change. So it's possible that there could be another update to the CAN-SPAM Act, depending on what else happens in the world, that might make the regulatory environment for cold email in particular very different. And an idea of that would be maybe they say, you know what, unsolicited email is no longer allowed. If that happens, you'll see a very quick change, because that will likely mean that Google won't feel a responsibility to deliver cold emails at all. They might just start to say, well, we don't deliver cold emails anymore because the law changed. That would be a significant change to cold email. Would email change? Probably not. But would the efficacy of unsolicited email change? Yes, that would be a pretty significant change. Hope that makes sense. Let's see. Arif asked, do you think Google would be pushing cold emails, also seeing the potential that limiting email lead gen could lead to more ad spend? I'm always like I think that I don't know if Google thinks that like the cross discipline, like they have some sort of global council of what tools and features in one area are supporting or detracting from tools or features in another area. I'm not really sure where that comes into play. My guess is that the people who are doing cold email, B2B senders, are some of the smallest spenders of Google Ads relative to their size, while the consumer brands that do opt-in email are the big spenders for consumer for ads. So it seems a little bit weird that they would deliberately punish a bunch of B2B senders, thinking that it's going to increase their Google ad spend, even though there's not a lot of evidence that it will. You could make an argument that suppressing cold email might increase LinkedIn's ad spend, but LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft, and that also is a little bit it's a little bit tedious to sort of imagine the relationship between them. There is a world in which Google decides that all the cold emailing isn't, even though that might be contributing to more seats being sold for Google, that they might decide to sacrifice all those seats in favor of making the email recipient experience better, in which case you'd see a dramatic drop off in their ability to spin up new Google Workspace accounts and send emails from them. But that's a change that we're already seeing. Google already is not allowing email inboxes to be spun up and sent. I mean, keep in mind, when we started doing cold email with senders in 2016, you could easily send 400 emails a day from a single Google Workspace account on day one with no warm up. And then by the time 2020 came around, we stopped entirely sending from Google and switched to our own setup. And when we did that, you could send maybe 100 emails a day from a Google Workspace account without any issue. Now, some people say they can only send 5 emails a day. So they are seeing a constraint being put on the senders. But I think a lot of that constraint has to do with other reasons that don't necessarily have to do with them trying to push people to ads. If that makes sense. Let's see. Arif has a question, another question. What are you folks doing for the domain masking issue, creating separate landing pages, or just using forwarding the domain masking and GoDaddy or Cloudflare, or still just a 301 redirect? A very simple redirect works fine. On the domain side, I mean, on the DNS side, that tends to work perfectly well. In fact, I think the fewer steps you have between the email being delivered and the redirect, the better. Dame, do you have any specific thoughts on that question? Arif has?
No, it's pretty much 301 redirect what we use. There isn't much benefit of just creating like separate landing pages just for your particular burn sorry for your particular burner domain.
Are you sneezing?
Sorry.
No. Are you having connectivity issue?
No, I'm coughing.
Oh, coughing. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, as I said, there is no difference between like doing the 301 or just trying to do like some landing pages separately. So just the 301 will work just fine.
Cool.
I know it is. And thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Arif. Let me go through and see if I missed any other questions. You have a few more minutes, but I want to make sure we cover any additional questions. This presentation it was pretty dense, and I appreciate everyone's patience in getting through it. We have a few sponsors here. If you these are partners that we work with and folks we like. So if you want compliance consultations, Secure Labs can do that. CFO services, Forecaster, Nacho, Craze and Friends if you want a free marketing audit. Rep King said, are the slides or recording be shared or emailed to those registered? Og, do we plan on sharing the recording of this, or is this top secret only for the people who are here? No, it's going to be on the YouTube channel, I believe, after this, which you can watch my past presentations too. Some of the stuff material is the same. Some might go into more detail on various things as well. Cool. Let's see. Oh, yeah, here we go. We put some links to the partners and sponsors down below. And if there are no additional questions, you can probably wrap it up. Keep in mind that you can contact me at benny@senders.co. Chris Lee is our director of revenue, chrislee@senders.co, if you'd like to learn more about what we do and how we help folks. You can book a meeting by going to senders.co. And if you're confused or struggling or want someone to look at your DNS records, your DMARC, SPF, DKIM, and let you know what's up or go into any details, you can send us a note and we'll set you up a call with Dame, who was the voice who jumped in, or anyone else on our team.
And I promise I won't cough when you book the call.
Hey,
So
as long as
be next week.
Cough all you want. Am I right? Dame's calendar was just put into the chat down below. Cool. Okay, thanks everyone. Hope this was helpful. Feel free with any feedback. They're in LinkedIn, the posts I made about this. If you write a question there, I'm happy to answer it there as well. And thanks everyone.